My name is Victoria Ijezumohere. I'm the Executive Director of Spaces for Change. So, the black soot has been a prevalent menace, especially in the Niger Delta region as a whole, but much more prevalent in Rivers State. And it's been defined. I think that black soot, a lot of people have tried to define to understand it, but they describe it as a black particulate matter that is made up of carbon and is resulting from what they call incomplete combustion of fossil fuel. So what are fossil fuel? Fossil fuel that is predominantly available in River State is crude oil. So it appears to be incomplete combustion of the processing of crude oil in River State. So it is believed that that state has a high concentration of illegal crude oil operations, which some people call fire, which some people call illegal refining, which some people call artisanal refining. So because of the concentration of those activities in that state, so we now have, that's what they call the incomplete combustion, because it's happening illegally and maybe they do not have the infrastructure to make the combustion process complete. So that has resulted in the massive black soot outbreak that we have seen in the city of Port Harcourt. So obviously, number one, we described black soot as carbon, that it comprises of carbon. The particulate matter contains carbon, and that carbon is emitted into the atmosphere. And when it's emitted into the atmosphere, it is inhaled by humans, not just humans, animals, aquatic animals, mammals, plants, because it also falls on plants, falls on mineral, everything within, on the surface in the entire state. So what it means is that as people are inhaling carbon-filled content into their nostrils, into their, organs, and as it's falling onto sources like water sources that people drink, it means that at the end of the day, it's going into the human system. Then, of course, because it's a foreign body, when you consume that foreign body in large amounts, of course, it's supposed to have consequences on the human health. And that has been happening. A lot of health concerns have been raised about the effects of that black soot on humans, on animals, on the total environment. I know that some people, there's a group that conducted a study in River State, and they said they found evidence of adverse respiratory ailments suffered by a number of people in that state. They also found evidence of skin and reproductive disorders in the state. So those ones are scientific explanations of some of the health impact of soot. But other than that, there is also the environmental impact, which is the deterioration of the environmental quality. With high carbon materials littering environment, it affects the ability of the environment to regenerate itself, the ability of the environment to reproduce. Like when you plant crops, it's not going to have the expected yield. When you go fishing, because fishes are also drinking from the carbon, because there is no umbrella above the sea and water levels preventing the soot from going inside. It means that mammal animals under the sea, aquatic animals, are also, ingesting this soot. So as the animals ingest it and we go back into the sea, take the animals and put into our body, you can see the cyclical effect of black soot and the soot-related health concerns in River State. I think I also have come across a report that talked about death rates arising from black soot, and some of them, a particular report talked about up to 25,000 deaths, including children. And that is really, 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 really concerning and something that the government needs to take into account. First and foremost, I'm aware of some of the studies that have been done by this, like the one I referenced a short while ago, that was done by independent individuals, including non-governmental organizations who've been going about creating a lot of awareness about black soot and conducting scientific studies to understand the effects on human health. And they documented that evidence of all the death rate of all the acute respiratory diseases, bronchitis. They documented the carcinogenic effects that the black soot is having. So that those are responses by private actors, such as non-governmental organizations. There have been what I would call securitized responses by the state. I'm aware that the governor himself has led a lot of operations into those areas where the artisanal refining operations are taking place, trying to put an edge to artisanal refining operations. And he has also done a bit of naming and shaming. In one of his campaigns, he named certain security agencies to be behind or at least not doing enough to arrest the situation in the states. Then at the federal government level, we're aware, even long before black soot became an issue, we're aware of some of the funds that have been set aside to clean up the environment in the Niger Delta. And some of those commitments to clean up the environment arose from the findings of the UNEP report, which again is a response by the international body to look into the question of environmental devastation in the entire Niger Delta region, with specific emphasis on the Ogoni community. And those reports outlined lots and lots of recommendations of what the government should do next, and the government has rolled out cleanup programs. So what it means is puts a question mark on the effectiveness of the cleanup programs, and again, draws attention to issues that, that the problems of Niger Delta are still persistent, and there is still need for both governmental and non-governmental action. So yeah, I think a lot of people are having conversations around black soot without having a corresponding conversation about the causative factors. If you don't arrest the causative factors, hitting the solutions from the root, you are still going to find yourself in the same vicious circle of nothingness that is pervading the polity. What do I mean by causative factors? Why are people going into artisanal refining? That's a very fundamental question. If people are going to artisanal refining because, number one, they find it as a productive venture. Number two, they find it to be economically rewarding. Number three, because the legal regimes we have in place have disincentivized domestic refining, in one sector like the mining sector, artisanal refining to a large extent is not as criminalized as it is in the oil and gas sector. And the reason for that dichotomy is unclear. So these are the issues in an environment or in a region where majority of their youth are unemployed. And unemployed youth have also their own pressures. They want to go to school, they want to have a house, they need a roof over their head, they need to be able to pay their medical bills, they need to take care of their loved ones, they need to take care of their parents. They are looking for meaningful ventures to be engaged in. It means that they need to be offered jobs, they need to be kept busy, they need to be trained, they need to be offered employment, and they need to be recruited. And if those opportunities are not there, you will find look for alternatives for themselves. And the alternatives we're increasingly finding in River State, in many parts of the Niger Delta, is many of them going into illegal oil refining, crude oil refining. So if you ask what should be done is to keep the youth sufficiently engaged, keep the restive youth sufficiently educated, invest in education, knowledge development, training, and beyond just building their capacities, also making sure that they will use that knowledge to do something meaningful for society. Because when you leave them idle, they will continue to look for other harmful ventures like artisanal refining. And once artisanal refining is continuing, the black soot is not going to go away. So what if you are talking about cleanup? Cleanup is supposed to come a distant last. Why do I say that? What it means is that if you allow artisanal refining and the black to continue, black soot will persist. So even if you clean up the environment, so areas you've cleaned up, the following day it is, impacted again by the soot and also devastated again. So it becomes a vicious cycle of nothingness that I mentioned at the beginning. So let's come from the fundamental, which is really to re-engineer the entire region, through human activity to kickstart real development, where the youth will no longer find the need to sabotage oil infrastructure and illegally refine petrol and diesel. And also whatever cleanup processes that are introduced to create jobs for local people, not a scenario where the government hires people called experts from foreign countries, bring them into the country, and locals just hold their arms. And because every time we are dependent on foreign personnel and technology, we are creating employment for foreign personnel and foreign countries that are importing that technology and their personnel, while you leave your own citizens idle. So these are some of the things I think as fundamental that will make the cleanup to be more meaningful.